Okay, so hi everyone. Thank you for joining today, especially right after lunch. I know this is the fighting a 2 p.m. crash, so I appreciate you being here for what is honestly a bit of a heavy topic. My name is Rohini Gupta. I'm a senior researcher at Educator, and I work with quiz creation, online testing, and grading. We will get to that briefly later, but today is not a product session. Today, we're talking about educator burnout, and I want to set the tone right at the start. I'm not here as someone who has solved this for myself, and I'm definitely not here to give you a wellness talk. The plan is to walk through the research, the patterns, and a few tactical things you can actually subtract from your week. The emphasis on subtract is intentional. Quick check on the audience. If you are here, you're probably either felt some version of this yourselves or you have watched a colleague go through it. Both are valid. Workshops like this can sometimes feel performative, like we will spend an hour talking about burnout while everyone goes back to a 60-hour week tomorrow. I want to be honest about that tension upfront. We cannot fix structural problems in 60 minutes, but we can map yours and you can leave with one specific thing to do less of. This is workshop 4 in our PrepAI faculty development series. The first three were on growth topics, and this one is a recovery topic. Different vibe, but the same structure. So let me walk you through what we will cover today. So here's what the next 50 minutes would look like. There are five outcomes that I'm aiming for. So first is spot the signals. The early warning signs of burnout are well documented in the research literature. Most of us miss them because we treat them as normal academic life. I will show you what to actually watch for. The second is diagnose the brain. Burnout is rarely just too much work. There are specific structural patterns underneath it. And naming them matters because the fix is different depending on which one is hitting you. Third is to set boundaries that hold. We will get into actual scripts that have research backing, things you can copy paste into an email or your syllabus. Fourth is reduce repetitive work. This is where AI and systems come in, not as a magic bullet, but as a way to subtract hours that you don't need to be spending. And fifth is refuel sustainably. Daily micro recovery and long-term renewal practices with honest data on what actually helps. And the rule for the whole session is in the box on the right. Subtract brain. Don't add brain. Oh, I should add this. Add subtract, not addition. Almost every faculty member I know is already at capacity and trying to avoid. All right, so let's start with where we actually are. Not switching institutions, leaving. These are US-led surveys. The Indian higher ed picture is harder to summarize because the equivalent national survey doesn't really exist. What we do have are smaller studies. Kerala study of 234 university teachers tied UGC and AICTE performance demands directly to elevated hypertension rate, around 14.6%. A Maharashtra study connected job stress to lower teaching effectiveness. The pattern across both regions is the same: rising load and failing support. The third stat: 72% of higher ed faculty had one on one mental health conversation with a student in one past year. That is not in their job description. That is the emotional labor part of academic life that nobody talks about. Fourth stat, and this one is our pivot towards solutions. This will save almost 6 hours a week, 6 weeks per school year. We'll come back to the number later when we get to the automate pillar. On the right, Indian context, the big policy is the UGC's 2026 mental health guidelines. These are new and worth knowing about. They explicitly cover faculty and staff and not just students. Mandatory mental health care at every center. So when we talk about pushing for systematic change later, this guideline is your level. The implication on the right says something I want to underline. Burnout in higher ed is structural before it is personal. The system is producing this, not your individual weakness. But the personal levels are the only ones you control today. So that is exactly where we start today. So, pillar one of four, see it. The italic line at the top says burnout is a prolonged response to chronic stress. Duration is the signal, not intensity. I want to come back to the idea in the moment. On the left, the early signals using the burnout inventory framework. Three dimensions, not one. Mind, emotional exhaustion, intrusive work thought, the feeling that you can't fully turn off, distance. You used to care about your students. Now you find yourself emotionally pulling back. And that sense that nothing you do is making a difference. Loss of competence. Important caveat. These are independent dimensions. The MBI manual says don't combine them into a single score. You can be high on exhaustion and still feel effective or feel competent but cynical. The pattern of where you score matters more than the total. On the right, the academia specific root causes. Effort reward imbalance. This is from the occupational health research. High effort and low reward, sustained over years. That is the academic life cycle for many of you. Long hours, slow tenure clock, recognition that comes after the fact, if at all. So, lack of autonomy, ironic, because academia is supposed to be autonomous, but role ambiguity, mandate creep, surveillance metrics, NEP 2022 in India added a new layer of these. Your time is yours, except when it's not. And blurred work home, always on email, weekend grading, permanent on call. This was already bad before COVID. The pandemic blew the doors off whatever was left of the boundary. Now look at the sidebar on the right, the self-check question. This is from a recovery research. After work today, did I forget about work? Just that question. And the test is if the honest answer is no for 2 or more weeks running, that's a leading indicator warning, not a diagnosis, a warning. That's the difference between a tough patch and a burnout trajectory. In a tough patch, you will still detach in the evening. Recovery still happens. On a trajectory, you cannot. Work follows you home and stays. Okay, so if anyone has any questions till now, they can ask me.
Mm, No, Mr. Roinish, I believe, yeah, we are going good.
Okay, anyone else?
Yeah, also no doubt.
Okay, perfect. So pillar two is stop the bleed, boundaries. Now the word boundaries gets thrown around a lot, and I want to be specific about what works in an academic life. So for four types. First is the email window. The single highest yield boundary. Pick a stated window. 24 hours on weekdays is the standard one. Put it in your syllabus, put it in your auto reply. The research from Chang et al. Shows that 91% of online students accept stated windows as long as they are explicit. The problem is not the weight, the problem is uncertainty. Tell them when you will respond, and their anxiety drops, and yours does too. Second is service cap. This is the one that is hardest in practice. Pick a number. Two committees, four peer reviews per year, one search committee. The cap is the default. New asks bump existing ones. You do not add, you swap. Third, protected block. One weekday morning logged. Calendar says deep work. Meetings go elsewhere. This is research time, writing time, lecture prep. Whatever the deep, unfragmented work is for you, the reason is this matter is that academic work does not get done in 15-minute gaps between meetings. It needs blocks. Protect at least one. The fourth is the trade-off no. This one is the most powerful in conversations with leadership. When someone asks you to take on something new, the line is to do what? To do this well, science forces a real prioritization conversation. On the right are three scripts, and these are copy paste. Use them as if you want. I am not able to take this message. No long apology, no explanation, period. I am at capacity through. Pick a date, happy to revisit them. This works because you're not refusing forever, you're just naming a window. My research time is non-negotiable on Tuesday and Thursday mornings. Says it plainly. Repeat it as it needed. One honest note on this slide, boundaries are not equally available to junior faculty, contingent staff, women, or faculty of color. The same no carries different costs depending on who says it. The research is clear on this. So if you are in a vulnerable position, use what you can. Don't try to set every boundary at once. Start with one email, and that one is hard to penalize. Build from there. Okay. So pillar
So
three.
I have one question here.
Yes.
So, as I am a senior mathematics faculty at one of the premium universities,
Mm-hmm.
so because it's a private university, so we already, maybe other professor in my institution itself, already generally have like 60 plus hours a week, because that includes maybe teaching, first of all prepare for teaching, then teaching in class, preparing assessments, grading answer sheets, and obviously there are other admin work as well.
Of course.
So between all of this, like, where do we even, how can we even find the time to set these boundaries? Because obviously, like, we have that management pressure as well, right? So how we can make that?
Got your question. So yes, this is the most common pushback, and it is a fair one. But set boundaries. Boundaries find you the time. So let me explain. The 60-hour week is not a fixed quantity. A chunk of those hours is being used for urgent tasks, not important requests. The first boundary add work. It actually claws back time. So maybe 2 hours that first week, maybe more. Use that recovered time to set the next one. It compounds. The mistake people make is thinking they need a free weekend to start. You do not. You start in the middle of the chaos with the smallest possible move. Turning on an auto reply takes 90 seconds. So that is your entry point.
Okay. Hmm. So basically, we need to start one by one, not all the things
Yes,
at once, which you covered in your last slide. We need to start
exactly.
one by one, right? And see whatever works for us.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyone else have any questions? Okay, so pillar three. This is the most important and practical pillar of the four. The framework on the slide is the standard time management quadrant. Eliminate, automate, delegate, and do. Eliminate. This is the first move and it is the most underused. Meetings without agendas. Standing committees that have not produced output in 2 years. The recurring 60-minute meeting that could be a Slack message or a Teams message or a WhatsApp message. Be ruthless. Almost every faculty calendar has 3 to 5 hours a week that genuinely does not need to exist. Automate. This is where AI fits. Question generation, objective grading, scheduling, transcription, email templates, feedback rubrics, anything repetitive that does not require your specific subject expertise. The data on the right, 5.9 hours per week saved by teachers using AI weekly. 81% save time on admin, 80% on prep, 79% on grading. And this is interesting. Schools with an explicit AI policy showed a 26% larger time saving than schools without one, which suggests the structure around AI matters as much as the AI itself. Delegate. This is the one academics chronically underdo. Peer reviews, undergraduate research assistants. Most faculty I work with have help available that they don't fully use. partly because of perfectionism and partly because of the productivity cult we talked about earlier. So if a graduate student can do it at 80% quality and free up 3 hours of your week, that is almost always the right call. So fourth is do the bottom right quadrant. Research, mentoring, design, the moments you only can create. This is what your time is supposed to be for. Everything else is a candidate for one of the other three quadrants. On the practical rule at the bottom right, AI does the heavy lift, you stay the subject expert. Always verify before going live. The risk with AI tools is that people skip the verification step. Don't. The 5.9 hours saved is real, but it is saved on the assumption that you are reading what AI produced before you use it. Three tools at the bottom of the slide are ones I personally use. I also see faculty using it a lot. PrepAI for assessment generation and auto grading. That is our platform. Full disclosure. Auto.ai for meeting and lecture transcription. And Calendly to eliminate the email tag for booking office hours. There are obviously many others, but use whatever fits your workflow. The point is, if you are spending more than 2 hours a week on something repetitive, there's probably a tool that can cut that in half. Pillar four is refuel. And the framing here is very important. Recovery happens at two time scales and both matter. On the left, we have daily micro recovery. These are things that compound day to day. Micro breaks, 2 to 3 minutes every 30 minutes of focused work. There is one meta analysis from 2022. 22 studies that found a small but statistically significant effect on fatigue reduction. Small effects, but they're real and they accumulate. Shutdown ritual. End of day, you have an explicit signal that work is over. It could be a one-line journal entry. It could be closing your laptop in a specific way. It could be a walk around the block. The point is, your brain needs a cue to know that your work day has ended. Without that cue, work bleeds into evening and recovery does not fully start. Drama. This is from a Finnish recovery study of 900 teachers. The acronym is detach, relax, autonomy, mastery, meaning, and affiliation. These are the six experiences that, when present in your evenings and weekends, predict actual recovery. Not all six every day, but most of them most weeks. Movement reduces muscle load, reduces stress on teaching days. It does not have to be gym. A walk between classes also counts. On the right, we have macro renewal, which is long term. Job crafting. Adjust the role you have toward the work you actually value. Sometimes that is negotiating a course swap. Sometimes it is building a research direction that actually aligns with what energizes you. Small reframes, big effect over years. Mentorship, and this one has hard numbers. So a research which ran a structurally faculty mentoring program for 7 years. Faculty who had participated 92% retention. Non-participants had 58%. For international faculty, 100 versus 61%. Mentorship is not just nice to have, it is a measurable retention level. Sabbatical. Sabbaticals produce significant well-being gains, and the effect is strongest for faculty who spend the sabbatical outside their home country. If you are eligible and haven't taken one, consider it. And the fourth one is Pope Rio's pillar from her book. Purpose, compassion, connection, and balance. This is the framework I find most useful for thinking about learning. And then the box on the right says, pick one, just one. If you walk out of this workshop with two new habits, you will do neither. So just pick one, small or slow, and protect it and move ahead. Now we do the work. 10 minutes, no team, no share out, just 10 honest minutes with yourself. Three stages, minutes 0 to 3, self rate. Take the three dimensions and rate yourself 0 to 6 on each. Exhaustion, cynicism, efficacy. Just three numbers. Don't overthink them. Your gut is probably right. Minutes 3 to 7. Find your drain. Look at the four root causes from our slide 4. Effort reward imbalance, lack of autonomy, calling, and blurred work home. Which one hits the hardest right now? Pick one, name it specifically. Not I am overworked. Instead, my HOD keeps adding committee work and I cannot say no. Or I haven't had a week without weekend grading in 6 months. And minute 7 to 10 should be picking one subtraction, one specific action you do help, one yes you will cancel or shorten, one meeting you will cancel or shorten, one yes you will reverse, one repetitive task you will automate, one after hour work you use this week. The rule on the right says subtract first, add nothing to it. One meeting you will cancel or shorten, one repetitive task you will automate, one specific action you do today. Specific actions you do not need to commit publicly. You just need to actually do it. On the right, we have what individual practices can not fix. Talks at department culture. Okay, so before I go to the cases, I want to address the four objections that almost always come up in workshops like this. Because if I don't say them out loud, you will be thinking them and you will be tuned out for the rest of the session. I don't have time for any of this. The honest reframe is burnout already costs you time. Gallup estimates 30% or more in productivity loss when someone is in active burnout. The math actually says you cannot afford to do this. The 10 minutes you just spent is the highest ROI 10 minutes of your work. Self care is just another task on my list. You are right. That is why this session is structured around subtract first, not add. Wellness as another performance metric is part of how the trap works. The first part and move is removal, not addition. If you came out of the activity with a new habit to add, go back and pick a removal instead. AI will replace me or it will degrade my teaching. AI replaces the boring half, admin, objective grading, scheduling, transcription. It does not replace the teaching half. It does not replace mentorship, design, conceptual explanation, or the moments where you read a room and adjust. The teaching half stays yours. AI just buys you time to do that part better. Junior or contingent faculty can't say no. This is true. And I named it earlier on the boundary slide. The honest answer is if you are in a vulnerable position, just say yes strategically. Pick what to say yes to, and the senior faculty in this room. You have the power to absorb more service work without penalty, so use it. On the right, we have what individual practices cannot fix. Toxic department culture, adjunct precarity, performance metrics that reward the wrong behavior, service work distributed unequally by gender, race, and identity. These need policy and leadership change. Push for wait, don't wait. Push for both, don't wait for either. And these practices will help, but they do not substitute for organizational change. Both and not either or. So, three real interventions, independent, peer reviewed, and these are not PrepAI client cases. These are from published literature. So, first is the USF Division of General Internal Medicine 2019. They did a mini Gen Z burnout survey across faculty physicians. Then they used the data to redesign workflow and scheduling. Targeted interventions, not blanket programs, remeasured statistically significant reductions in burnout and stress at post test. The pattern is diagnose first, fix the highest yield friction, and remeasure. Don't try to fix everything. Second is UNC Greensboro mentoring program in 2014. For international faculty specifically, the numbers were even sharper, 100% versus 61. The lesson is connection, not content is the lever. The act of being mentored predicts retention more than almost any program design variable. Third is randomized controlled trial at a Nigerian university published in the Journal Medicine 2022. This is a 10-week structural rational emotive behavior therapy program. Significant reductions in burnout scores, both at post-test and at 3-month follow-up. The pattern was short structured program, durable improvement, It does not have to be expensive or long running. It just have to be structured. On the right, the Indian policy hook. UGC 2026 Mental Health Guidelines. This is your lever for institutional change. They cover faculty and staff. They mandate a mental health and well-being center at every HEI. First national framework to do so. If you want to push your institution toward one of these structured programs, UGC is now formally on your slide. So if my activity gave you just one subtraction, this slides actually gives you the cadence. So first 30 days is where I want you to subtract. Cancel one standing meeting. Set a 24 email auto reply. Pick one repetitive task to automate. Self check at the end of the month to see if the dial moves. Days 30 to 60 is build. Once you have cleared your space, build the protective routines. Protective weekday morning, micro break rhythm, 30 minutes work, 2 minutes work, shutdown ritual at a fixed time. Start one renewal practice. Could be the mentorship side, the job crafting side, it does not matter. Days 60 to 90 is where I want you to sustain. Weekly planning ritual using the NCFDD template if you want a starter. Quarterly Maslax self-check. Make one systematic ask of leadership. Bring the UGC guidelines as your hook, as if in your India. Document the gains for review purposes. On the right, the four KPIs to track weekly is hours saved per week, detached evenings, yes or no, end of week energy on a 1 to 10 scale, task subtracted, just a spreadsheet. It does not have to be sophisticated. And the rule at the bottom right, if it did not make next week lighter, it did not work. Cut it. That's the test for everything you add. Three quick takeaways. First is recognize and diagnose. See the signals early. Map the root. The three dimensions and the four root causes are your tools. The self-check question. After work today, did I forget about work? Is the simplest leading indicator I know. Two, subtract before you add. Boundaries and automation come first. Most self-care fails because the drain is still there. You can pour water into a leaky bucket forever and it won't fill. Plug the leak first. Three is protect what matters. Deep work, mentoring, the moments only you can create. Everything else is a candidate for elimination, automation, or delegations. Resources are at the bottom. PrepAI at prepai.io, NFCDD weekly planning template, Bob Ruar's book Unraveling Faculty from GHU Press 2021. That's the most useful single resource I would recommend if you want one. UGC 2026 Mental Health Guidelines for the Policy River. Slides and recording will be shared via email or YouTube within 24 hours. So, before I close, does anyone have any last questions? Anything you want me to clarify or push back on?
Um, yes. First of all, like, thanks for the great presentation, Mr. Vinish. I believe going forward, some part of the complete presentation will obviously help us in planning our week going forward. Uh, but just couple of questions. First
Hmm.
would be obviously as the complete presentation, I believe focused on subtract first and then add, right? We need to set
Yes,
boundaries. Maybe we need to learn the prioritization kind of thing, right?
right.
But obviously we are professors, right? And we have management people on top of our in the complete hierarchy level. So like what if my HOD, right, or maybe you
Hmm.
can say department head,
Hmm.
doesn't let me say no to the services work, right, that we discussed in one of the slides. Like, so how to tackle that situation?
Okay. So great question. Thank you so much for putting this up. And the honest answer is like that is the structural problem we talked about. An individual technique can only do so much against it. But here's what I have seen work. First is the trade-off. No, I mentioned earlier. To do this well, I would need to drop X. Which would you prefer? Is the question you need to ask. Is much for an HOD for refuse than a flat no. So you are not refusing the work, you are forcing them to make the prioritization visible. Second is document what you are already carrying. Write it down. Bring the list to the next conversation. Most chairs and HODs underestimate how loaded their faculty are because the load is invisible. So make it visible. Third is if you are a junior or contingent and the structural power is not there, the senior faculty in your department have a responsibility to absorb the deflection. So if you are in this workshop and you are a senior, that's part of the job. Take the meeting, your junior can't decline. Your junior colleague cannot decline. So UGC 2026 guidelines, if you are in India, also give you an institutional language to push back. So you should use them as well.
Got it. Yeah. Uh, let's take a use case. Suppose my week is already planned, right?
Hmm.
From maybe 9 to 5, right? But I got a request from my management that I need to take some guest lecture in some other institution, right? Or maybe if any of my peer professors is going to be absent in coming week, right? So I need to take those extra classes to mitigate the loss of students, right? But what if my plate is already filled, na? My week is booked, right? In that case,
Right.
obviously, like how do I have this conversation with leadership without it being held against me at the review time? I hope you understand, right? Obviously,
Yes,
that
yes,
time
yes. I
maybe
completely.
we are not saying, but at because we have those quarterly meetings, quarterly
Of
reviews
course.
as well, and at that time it may stand against me as well, right?
Of course. Okay, so this is another great question, and this is also a real concern, and I also want to take it very seriously. A few things. So first is frame it as performance, not wellness. Leadership in higher ed respond better to here is what's affecting my research output than to I am burned out. So same content, but it is different packaging. The packaging matters most because of how performance reviews are structured. Two is you should bring data. Quote the Healthy Minds 64% stat of the Chronicle Half Higher Ed survey. You're not a special case complaining, you're describing the sector. Three is propose, don't just protest. Walk in with one concrete ask, a course release or a teaching swap or a service cap, not just a problem statement. Leadership is far more likely to engage when you have done the work of suggesting what the fix could look like. And four is, and this one is harder. Pick your moment, not the week before your tenure review, not the week after a controversy. Look for the natural conversation point, like the annual review or a departmental retreat, and use that. The conversation is rarely held against people who frame it productively. It's the people who frame it as complaint that risk being labeled, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, got it. So instead of maybe raising questions, raising complaints again and again mid-while of the session, it's better to maybe pick up or raise the concerns or maybe the challenges we are facing during the review time or maybe annual meetings.
Come to them just with a fix, like this is what I should be doing. Um,
Hmm. Got it. Yeah, I believe. Yeah, I got my answer.
okay.
Yeah, I had one question.
Yes.
Am Yes, can I really apply this on a tier 3 institution where we don't have any budget for tools and subtitles?
Okay. Honestly, yes. Most of what we cover today does not need budget. The self-check is free. The question is in the public domain. The shutdown ritual is free. The micro break rhythm is free. The 24-hour email window is free. The trade-off no is free. Job crafting is free. Where budget matters is in the AI tools and the sabbaticals, and even there are workarounds. So PrepAI, let's suppose PrepAI has a free tier, ChatGPT has a free tier, Otter.ai has a free tier. with limited minutes. None of these require institutional purchase. For the macro renewal, sabbaticals are obviously a privilege of well-resourced institutions, but mentorship does not require a program. You can build a peer mentoring relationship with one colleague at another institution over WhatsApp. The UNCG retention data was about formal programs, but the mechanism, sustained connection, mutual accountability, works also in informal arrangements too. So the resource constraint is real, but it should not be a blocker. It just changes which levers you pull. I hope you got your answer.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions?
No, I
All
believe.
right. So thank you so much, professors and teachers, for being here. The line on the right side is the one I wanted to leave with. Less, slowly, sustainably. Recovery from burnout does not happen in a workshop. It happens in the small choices over weeks and months. Pick the one thing you wrote down, do it this week, and the rest follows. Reach out through the PrepAI community or the emails and take care of yourself. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.